you, success is inevitable in your life. We're talking about favor, right? Can I just go ahead and tell you just a little bit more about favor? And there's three things that favor comes on, and this happens to be one of them. The first way we've already talked about, favor comes on people or a person. Have you just seen someone that's just so favored by God, no matter what they do, they're blessed? Have you ever seen that? We talked about that with Joseph's life because God was with them. The second thing, which is what we're talking about currently, is favor comes on a pathway. And we have to understand that favor, it does shift how it comes on you. Why? Because God doesn't want you to get hooked on a certain way, but He wants you to be hooked on the fact that He's doing it to you to keep you through the process of seeking after Him. So it might be on you today, and then if you find yourself unfavorable, it could be because God switched it because you just thought that you were all that in a bag of chips. So now He said, I'm going to put it on the pathway, on the pathway. What does that really mean? It's not just any path, but it's the path. Not just any path, but the path. In other words, just because you were successful in business doesn't mean you can jump in ministry and be successful. Vice versa. Just because you're a great minister and people relate to you and like you does not mean you need to jump in politics. I know it's quiet, but it's true. Because there's a certain predestined path for your life that comes. The last thing that favor comes upon is a place called there. There. God will tell you to go there. Then He'll tell you to go, okay, now that you've gotten there, go over here. It's a place called there. In other words, favor comes on a place. In other words, if God did not tell you to leave your company, you better not leave. Because your favor could be attached to the fact that you are there. Let me just make it a little bit spiritual because we're in the church. If God did not call you to leave this church, make sure that you do not go anywhere else but this church because your favor is there. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but you have to understand how God's favor comes. But we're talking about the pathway, the pathway. Verse 18 of Isaiah 48, what does it say to us? Isaiah 48, 18. Oh, that thou hadst hearkened to my commandments, then had thy peace been as a river, and thy righteousness as the seas. 19. Thy seed also had been as the sand, and the offspring of thy bowels like the gravel thereof. Almost sounds funny, doesn't it? His name should not have been cut off nor destroyed from me. What is this saying? God is saying, because you didn't listen to me, this is what happened. But if we reverse it and we listen to God, what does it mean? God is saying, if you do what I tell you, success always leaves a mark. Obedience always leaves a t-shirt that says, I've been there and done that. And the byproduct is, He said that if we would do those things and hearken unto His commandments, that we would have peace. Peace. For somebody, you just need some peace in your life. You could receive healing and monetary, but all those things will be great, but if you just had some peace to lay your head down at night and your mind stopped running 100 miles an hour trying to figure everything out and work everything out, if you just had some peace, that would mean something to you. If you'd listen to His voice, He said you'd have peace. Then my personal favorite, this is the only one I want to focus on, as He said, the offspring of you would be more numerous than the gravel or the sand. Offspring. In other words, everything that you birth, I'm not just talking about babies. I'm talking about the ministry, the job, the dream. Whatever that you birth would be so numerous and that its name would not be cut off. In other words, you wouldn't just keep starting things and never finishing them. That's an epidemic in the church itself, eating us up like a cancer. We are professionals at coming up with great ideas, getting through the beginning and planning stages, and we get to implementation and we mess it all up, and we start great things, but we never finish it. Could it be because we haven't diligently hearkened unto His voice? What does that mean? I'm just trying to tell you, listen up to God. Because He's the one that speaks the favor in your life, and the byproduct of God's favor is that your name would not be cut off. In other words, the things you do would last. I don't know about you, but I'm going through this thing called life one time, and this is what I'm doing with it. So in other words, I don't have time to allow everything I'm trying to do to keep getting cut off and not lasting. I need some things that I start to continue on because I don't want to leave this life in the same state that I come in, but I do want to accomplish something. Is there anybody else that's got the same thing in your heart that could just wave at me and let me know I'm doing okay and I'm talking to you, that your name would not be cut off? How? If we listen to God. I know it's so simple that you wanted some type of package just wrapped up together that seemed all deep and holy and spiritual, but listen to God. It works. Listen to God, it works. I want you to understand that. Luke chapter 5, verse 1 through 11. Let's just read this quick story together. Verse 1. And it came to pass that as the people pressed upon Him to hear the word of God, He stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw two ships standing by the lake, but the fishermen were gone out of them, and they were washing their nets. Verse 3. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. Now when he had left speaking, he said unto Simon, launch out into the deep and let down your nets. Verse 5. And Simon answering to him said, Master, we have toiled all the night and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let thee down. He was basically saying, listen, we're toiling. What does that mean? Toiling means to be tired outside and inside. In other words, you are emotionally depleted and externally just wore out. Even your earlobes are tired. Is there anybody ever been like that? He said, nevertheless, at your word, I'll do it. If we really read between the lines, he was saying this to Jesus. Jesus, I know what I'm doing. I may not know what you're doing, but I know what I'm doing. And if there was some fish to be caught, I would have caught them because I'm the best at what I do. Nevertheless, just to prove you wrong, I'm going to show you that I know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do it, not because I'm expecting anything to happen, but because you said it, I'm going to do it. And this is what happened. Verse 6. And when he had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fish in their nets. See, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Where are we at? I'm just going to read up here with you guys. And when they had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fishes, and their nets brake. Verse 7. And they beckoned unto their partners, which were in the other ship, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink. Verse 8. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord. I would love to know what he really said. If we read between the lines, why is he going to fall down in repentance if he wasn't cussing Jesus out? I just want to know. That's all I'm talking about. Verse 9, what does it say to us? For he was astonished, and all that were with him, at the draught of fishes which they had taken. Verse 10. And so was also James and John, the son of Zebedee, which were partners with Simon. And Jesus said unto Simon, watch this, fear not, for henceforth thou shalt catch men. This is important, verse 11. He said, no longer is your favor going to be on fishing fish, but fishing for men. And when they had brought their ships to the land, they forsook all and followed him. Peter was a successful businessman. How do we know that? Because when the fishes came in and the nets began to break and everything was going on, he had a network of ships, and he had some type of communication among these ships and his partners, because somehow they all knew who to come or where to come. They all knew the system and how to come. They all knew how to work together. They knew each other's boats. They knew how to grab onto each other's nets. So we see we're not just talking about a man that wasn't successful, but we're talking about a man who had made great success in fishing. He knew about how to operate a boat. He knew about how to tie knots, and he knew all about fishing. So when Jesus steps on his boat, he begins to teach them, and through teaching him, he actually even told him through the process his favor was about to shift, but Peter didn't even get it. His favor was about to shift. In other words, he had had great favor, great success, great results in fishing for fish, but his favor switched, and now he was called to fish for men. And what happened? He didn't understand that his favor had switched, so he was trying to go back and do the thing that had always worked for him, and through the process, he found himself toiling. Is there anybody that's ever toiled with anything in your life? What was toiling? You're internally depleted, so emotionally drained because of the struggle externally, and you're physically worn out because you're doing everything that you know to do. That could be a direct sign that the favor of your life has shifted. When the thing you've always done that's always given you results no longer gives you results, a red flag should go up somewhere. Hey, I need to go back and hearken diligently unto God's voice. I need to see what's going on in my life. And Jesus makes a great statement to him. He says, no longer will you fish for fish, but you shall fish for men. You'll fish for men. In other words, your favor has switched. Your favor has switched. Jesus goes on and was crucified. He was resurrected. And after the resurrection, Peter, he was a little bit scared because he didn't know everything was going on. So naturally, what did Peter do like most of us sitting in this place? He went back to what was familiar. John chapter 21, verse 3. Look at it with me. Jesus has been resurrected. And Simon Peter said unto them, I go a-fishing. They say unto him, we also go with thee. And they went forth and entered into a ship immediately. And that night they caught nothing. What happened? His favor switched. He didn't catch nothing because he didn't have the skills and the trade set, but he caught nothing because his favor of his life was no longer on that. That was the pathway for a season, but favor switched, and he's still trying to continue in the same path that